we are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio Grassman or even the Michigan Dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Welcome back to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are covering a supposed curse in the Curse of Tippecanoe. And it's also known as Tecumseh's Curse, the 20-year curse, or the Zero Curse. And it involves the deaths of United States presidents in years divisible by 20.
And the legend is that Tenskwatawa, the leader of the Native American tribes, defeated in 1811 at the Battle of Tippecanoe by a military expedition led by the future president William Henry Harrison. And that had caused the curse is against the Great White Fathers, they would call it.
And it's implied that the Great White Fathers is the president of the United States. And since 1840, 8 presidents have died in office, with 7 of them being elected in years divisible by 20, therefore being quote unquote impacted by the curse. And the first, of course, is William Henry Harrison, who was elected in 1840 and died in 1841 due to typhoid or paratyphoid fever. Abraham Lincoln, who was elected in 1860 to his first term and died in 1865 by assassination in his second term. James A. Garfield, who was elected in 1880, died in 1881, also by assassination. William McKinley was re-elected in 1900, so elected to a second term and died in 1901, also by assassination. Warren G. Harding was elected in 1920 and died in 1923 due to cardiac arrest. Franklin D. Roosevelt was re-elected to his third term in 1940 and died during his fourth term in 1945 due to an intracerebral hemorrhage. And John F. Kennedy, yes, this is the third video we've done that's involved JFK, was elected in 1960 and died in 1963, as we've covered, by assassination.
Now, if you just look at this here, I can understand why it's like, okay, maybe there's some truth to this curse. Maybe there's something about it.
Exactly, especially with, the 4 assassinations.
But then if we get here to presidents that have beat the curse, so not all presidents have died in office during this. So Ronald Reagan, elected in 1980, died in 2004 out of office. George W. Bush, elected in 2000, still alive today. And Joe Biden, elected 2020, still alive. So not every president has died in like the divisible by 20.
Exactly. And there's also other presidents that are tied to the curse, but not really because of timing. The first one is Thomas Jefferson, who was elected in 1800 and James Monroe, elected in 1820, supposedly preceded the curse. At least in Jefferson's case, preceded the curse, and Monroe came after the curse, but they both outlived their presidencies by 17 and 6 years, respectively. And they're tied to the curse since both die on July 4th, which is the United States' Independence Day.
Mm. So the end of the curse, some people believe since Reagan survived his assassination attempt, that broke the curse. That's kind of what their idea is for it. So possibly.
I mean, makes sense in the terms of curses that Reagan, who survived what would have been the fifth assassination, would break the curse.
Uh-huh.
And on to our thoughts, like I kind of brought up with Monroe, I don't think there's an actual curse because Monroe was actually elected after the Battle of Tippecanoe, and thereafter the curse was supposedly laid down. So unless Tenskwatawa specifically stated that the curse would start with Harrison, I just don't think there's an actual curse.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's actually a curse, especially since there were some presidents that somehow survived it. Now, if it was every single president had died in office on a divisible by 20, I would somewhat be like, okay, that is a little suspicious. But since there are some that have survived, I don't think it's an actual curse.
Exactly, and you just can't go like 29 years after the fact and say the curse started with this guy when the first president elected in a year by 20 actually survived his presidency. So and Monroe, so yeah,
it doesn't really hold water.
Yeah, but like Reagan breaking the curse would make sense if Monroe had died in office, but just doesn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all we've got for this week. Next week we are taking a look at another curse, and the Curse of Tippecanoe. So stay tuned for that next week. Any last words, Ethan?
Just thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, drop us a follow and a comment, and we'll see you next week.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Mary Laveau or the Road. At Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, the folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokoloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the Phantom Time hypothesis is like a phoenix, coming back around again and again. The laser strain on your brain if you've got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney's dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject to folklore.